Hi guys, my name's Natalie Gottney and my presentation is on the transactional theory of development. It's to summarize basically transactions or interactions between a child and their parent or caregiver. There are different stages of transactions that add up to the final results or the reaction from the child that they get from the caregiver. So some key points for this theory of development. There are, like I said, there are three stages. The first one is the child does something to get the adult's attention. Either in their behavior or even in just their appearance. And then the next stage is the caregiver or the parent's response to their behavior or their appearance. And then the third is the act or how the caregiver formally responds to that, what they've seen from the child. So I've got this nifty little page here to kind of show you how it all flows together. So we've got the child. They do something or present themselves in a way that the adult, the caregiver, witnesses, and whether it's behavioral, so like the child is crying or screaming, or they're laughing, smiling, the caregiver sees that and then they respond. So their response is how they actually, not what they just see, but how they actually handle the situation. So, the third would be how they handle it, whether they pick up the child for comfort or applaud them for accomplishing a task or something like that. Another key point is that there are opportunities for intervention between each stage. So if the way that the child is reacting is not the desired act, then there's opportunity for changing the child's behavior. So that's the remediation stage. And then the parent, how they associate the child's behavior with the outcome that they want, there may be opportunity for changing that as well, for redefining that that moment. And not every parent is going to know exactly how to handle a situation, and caregivers as well. So there's that opportunity for education to let them know how to best handle those transactions or interactions. So there's that. And those just repeat over and over time between the child and their caregiver. Some interesting implications of using this theory. So the child isn't defined by just their behavior, their appearance, but their biological status is part of their development, and their parents' understanding of the appropriateness and helpfulness is a huge part of how they develop. So that's why those points of education and remediation and redefinition are so important, because that's helping the child to develop developmentally, just in their social gains. So implementing this theory, it's important, of course, to build trust between the child and their caregiver, and the child using appropriate development between the caregiver and their child using appropriate interactions and reactions. And then the education for parents on handling situations that they may not be experienced in. So if the child is at home and they're acting a certain way and the parent is reacting to that behavior in not a positive way, maybe not necessarily negative, but they just don't know how to best handle it, then the child may have trouble forming that trust between you as a caregiver or the teacher, just because they don't have that trust line at home of that comfort level. So to implement this, there has to be some line of trust between the caregiver and the child. Challenges kind of tie into that. If a parent doesn't know the appropriate interaction or another caregiver hasn't displayed appropriate interaction, then that trust won't be there. So like an example would be when the child falls and someone, caregiver or parent, says, "You're fine, get up," like tough love kind of situation, then rather than "Are you okay?" or "Did you hurt your knee?" something more comforting, then this impacts the child's willingness to trust and develop relationships with other people, because they may feel like they can't express how they feel because they're not getting the desired reaction that they want at home or from that other caregiver. Strengths and weaknesses. Some strengths. The child learns dependency and cause and effect through interactions with adults and caregivers. They build their social skills and how to handle and express their emotions through these interactions. And so as adults, we and their caregiver, we need to be the ones to facilitate that amount of trust and the education on how to express themselves and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. But then they're going to be looking to us to get those reactions. So weaknesses come from those home environments or other caregiver environments that we can't control. So we have to kind of back build that trust level to get the desired reactions from the child. And then if those previous caregivers have established certain like social or emotional boundaries with the child, then it would be up to us to kind of reestablish and rebuild those relationships as well. Play is supported in the theory, not directly, because it's more interaction based between the child and the caregiver, but it kind of leaves it open to letting the child be themselves and explore through play how to get those reactions that they want out of the caregiver. So while a child is playing, like stacking cups or building with blocks or something like that, they're really proud of themselves, and so they may turn to the caregiver and smile, and then the caregiver applauds or says great job, and so then they get that desired reaction, and then they continue to play. So in the classroom that I'm currently in, evidence of this theory is like it's every second of every day that I've been in the classroom. So some examples of the transactional theory in that classroom are like when the children wake up from nap time. Some of them will wake up and they are ready to go, and they come sit at the table, they're ready for snack, and they need very little affirmation of everything that's going on and that they're okay. Other children, they will wake up crying or just kind of whiny, and they will do that until they get the reaction from the teachers that they are looking for. So they're usually greeted with "Good morning," "It's nice to see you. How did you sleep? Are you ready for snack? Do you need a cuddle? We can read a book." Just whatever they're needing to feel safe in that moment, waking up in the classroom. Another example would be like when they stack their blocks or build towers, like I mentioned earlier. Usually met with applause, smiles, approval, and when they get that, and then they move on to something else. Opposite of that, when they do something that they know they shouldn't be doing, like climbing up on a table or anything that's feet not on the floor, so it's not safe, and therefore we have to intervene, they know that they're going to be met with a negative reaction, but they still do it, of course, but that's just another interaction that they have. It may not be exactly the positive one that they get from the block building, but it's still a reaction, and it's part of the relationship. And then with the infants, something that I've noticed is when we have some that are not quite independently mobile, and so when they kind of topple over, they'll lay on the floor and look to the caregiver for, how am I supposed to feel right now? So if you keep a neutral reaction and they want that reaction of if they had fallen and gotten hurt and they cried, so they've fallen and they didn't get hurt, but you're not responding as if they had. So they cry, because then you'll pick them up and cuddle them and make it all better. And so they've learned how to, at a very young age, how to get those reactions that they want. And it's all over the place in the classroom, but it's with everything that we do in there. I mean, everything is relationship with the kids, and how our responses to what they do and what they say and how they are acting, how that feeds back into what they're going to do next. So what I've learned from studying this theory, and how I will use it in my career, I've learned that it's really important not to jump to conclusions when dealing with a child and their behavior or their appearance. One thing that I learned about this is that the appearance of a child can influence how you treat them or your tolerance for certain behaviors. And so I've learned to kind of keep my opinions more neutral, and some of the children that may not have certain advantages at home really need them in the classroom. And so that's kind of my takeaway, is that I want to make sure that they get that, what they may be missing or what they're not appropriately getting at home or in another facility, that they get that when they're with me. Another thing that I've learned is that sometimes the child is seeking a certain reaction, and it's best not to react, but to give them as a more constructive reaction that's going to be beneficial towards the relationship you're trying to build with them. So, when they're misbehaving, they're looking for that specific reaction, and it's not always the right thing to immediately react, but to take a second and diffuse the situation, or allow yourself to think on how what the best way to handle it is. So that is the transactional theory of development, and that's it. Thanks.